They banished him from his daughter's wedding with a single sentence. Nathan Clark, the man who raised Emily for 20 years, was told his place was already taken by a father who'd vanished before she could walk. Now, in the quiet of his Portland kitchen, Nathan stirred a pot of chili and planned a reckoning that would shake their world. In the green embrace of Portland, Oregon, Nathan Clark, a 48-year-old carpenter with hands rough as oak, lived for two things: his wife, Laura, and their daughter, Emily. He wasn't Emily's biological father. Her real dad, Rick, had slipped out of her life like a shadow when she was 2, leaving nothing but a faded photograph. Nathan stepped in at 5, building her a treehouse, teaching her to ride a bike, and cheering at every school play, even when the gym smelled of sweat and hot dogs. To him, Emily wasn't a stepdaughter. She was his kid, no asterisk needed. Their home, a craftsman bungalow in the suburbs, was Nathan's pride. He'd carved the cedar beams himself, laid the stone fireplace where they roasted marshmallows, and refinished the oak floors the summer Emily left for nursing school. Laura, 46, a gallery manager with a sharp eye for art and a sharper tongue for arguments, seemed grateful for it all. At least Nathan thought she was. Lately, her smiles had grown thin, her eyes distant, but he chalked it up to the chaos of planning Emily's wedding. Emily, now 25, was the light of Nathan's life. She had his stubborn streak and Laura's soft voice, a combination that made her both fierce and kind. As a nurse, she worked long shifts, but Nathan still saw the little girl who'd called him Dad without hesitation. These days, though, her texts were short, her calls rare. Wedding stress? Nathan told himself, ignoring the unease creeping into his gut. He didn't know Laura had been texting Rick, the ghost from Emily's past, or that Emily, caught in a haze of curiosity, was dreaming of a fairy tale moment with her real dad. The wedding was a month away, and Nathan was neck-deep in it. He'd paid for the dress, a $5,000 lace gown that made Emily glow, booked a sprawling estate outside Portland, and hired a string quartet because Emily loved Vivaldi. He worked overtime, his sawdust-covered hands aching, to cover the catering, the photographer, even the deposit for a honeymoon cruise to the Bahamas. "It's her day," he'd say, grinning, when Laura fretted about costs. He didn't see the glances she exchanged with Emily, the whispers when he left the room. One evening, Nathan stood in the kitchen, the air thick with the scent of his signature beef chili, Emily's favorite, spiced just right. He was humming an old Springsteen tune, the kind of night where everything felt steady. Laura walked in, her arms crossed, her face unreadable. "Nathan, we need to talk," she said, her voice flat as a courtroom gavel. He kept stirring, expecting a budget gripe or a guest list debate. Instead, she dropped the bomb. "Emily wants Rick to walk her down the aisle." The spoon froze in his hand. "Rick?" Nathan's voice was low, like he was testing the word. "The guy who bailed in '02? Who hasn't sent her so much as a birthday card?" Laura sighed, that exasperated sound she used when she thought he was being dramatic. "They've been talking. She's curious. It's her wedding, Nathan. She wants her biological father to give her away." The kitchen shrank, the walls pressing in. Nathan set the spoon down, his knuckles white. "I'm paying for the venue, the dress, the whole damn thing. I raised her, Laura." "Me." His voice stayed calm, but his eyes burned. Laura looked away, her fingers tapping the counter. "It's not personal. She prefers Rick for this." Then, almost too fast, she added, "And she'd rather you not come to the ceremony." The words hit like a sledgehammer. Not personal. 20 years of tucking Emily in, of driving her to soccer practice, of wiping her tears after her first breakup, erased in a sentence. Nathan didn't shout. He didn't throw the chili pot. He reached for a beer, cracked it open, and stared at the window he'd replaced last spring, the one Emily had helped him measure. "Not come," he repeated, testing the weight of it. Laura nodded, her silence louder than any excuse. He took a long sip, the cold beer doing nothing to cool the fire in his chest. Emily, his Emily, had chosen a stranger over him. Laura, his wife of 2 decades, had let it happen, maybe even pushed for it. The betrayal wasn't just a cut. It was an amputation, clean and deliberate. Nathan didn't ask why. He'd seen the signs, hadn't he? The way Emily hesitated when someone called him her dad. The way Laura's praise had turned to critiques. He'd ignored them, thinking love was enough. He was wrong. "All right," he said finally, his voice steady as steel. Laura blinked, caught off guard. "All right?" she echoed, like she'd expected a fight. He nodded, turning back to the chili, stirring it as if the world hadn't just shifted under his feet. But inside, something clicked. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a choice, hers, Emily's, maybe even Rick's. And now Nathan would make his own. That night he didn't sleep. He sat in his workshop, a converted shed that smelled of sawdust and varnish, surrounded by tools he'd used to build their life. On the desk lay the wedding folder, receipts, vendor contracts, a swatch of Emily's dress fabric. He opened his laptop, the screen's glow harsh in the dark. His fingers hovered over the keyboard, then typed, Kodiak Wilderness Charters. A week-long fishing trip in Alaska, a dream he'd shelved for years. He clicked book now, his credit card number a quiet rebellion. The confirmation email pinged, a small victory. Then he called his lawyer. "I want to sell the house," he said, his voice calm but final. The bungalow, his labor of love, would be gone before Laura or Emily could blink. The proceeds? He'd donate them to a charity for foster kids. Kids like the one Emily used to be, before she decided he wasn't enough. It wasn't revenge, not yet. It was clarity. They'd made their choice. Now he'd make his, and it would echo louder than any words he could say. She thought he'd beg, but Nathan Clark wasn't that man. After Laura dropped the bombshell, banishing him from Emily's wedding for a father who'd never earned the title, he didn't crumble. In the stillness of his Portland workshop, Nathan began to carve a new path, one that would leave his betrayers grasping at shadows. The air in the craftsman bungalow felt heavier now, like it was holding its breath. Nathan moved through the house with purpose, his work boots silent on the oak floors he'd sanded himself. Laura noticed the change but said nothing. She'd expected tears, maybe a shouting match, but Nathan's calm was unnerving. He cooked breakfast, pancakes, Emily's favorite, though she hadn't been home in weeks. He mowed the lawn, fixed a leaky faucet, and smiled when Laura passed by. But his eyes, once warm as cedar, were distant, calculating. In his workshop, Nathan's plan took shape. The wedding was 3 weeks away, and he was still footing the bill, $30,000 and counting, every cent from his savings and extra shifts. The irony wasn't lost on him. Paying for a day he was barred from, for a daughter who'd chosen a ghost over him. He opened his laptop, the Kodiak Wilderness Charters confirmation glowing like a lifeline. Alaska was step 1. A week of solitude on the open water, far from the life he'd built and lost. But step 2 was bigger, bolder, a move that would rewrite the story they thought they controlled. He met his lawyer, Sarah, at a diner off I-5, the kind of place where coffee was strong and waitresses didn't eavesdrop. "I want the house sold," Nathan said, sliding a folder of documents across the table. "Fast. And the money goes to a charity for foster kids." Sarah raised an eyebrow, her pen pausing. "This is your home, Nathan. You built it. You sure?" He nodded, his jaw tight. "It's not a home anymore." The bungalow, worth $600,000, was his masterpiece. But it was also a cage of memories. Emily's laughter, Laura's promises, all tainted now. Selling it wasn't just practical. It was surgical, cutting out the life they'd taken for granted. Sarah worked fast. By the next day, a realtor had listed the house discreetly with a cash buyer lined up, a developer looking to flip it. Nathan didn't tell Laura. He didn't tell Emily. He kept paying the wedding vendors, signing checks with a steady hand, each one a silent farewell. The caterer got $8,000 for salmon and steak. The florist, $3,500 for roses and peonies. The cruise deposit, for $1,000, because Emily deserved a dream honeymoon. He was still her dad, even if she'd forgotten. Meanwhile, Laura was basking in her victory. At her gallery, she sipped wine with clients, her cream blazer pristine, her smile smug. Emily's reconnecting with her real dad, she told a coworker, her voice dripping with rehearsed ease. It's healing for her. She didn't mention Nathan, the man who'd raised Emily through fevers and heartbreaks, who'd rebuilt their deck last summer while she complained about the noise. To Laura, his absence was a footnote, his pain irrelevant. She texted Rick, the prodigal father, who sent vague replies from Vegas, promising to make it work for the wedding. Laura believed him or wanted to. Emily did too. Emily, caught in a whirlwind of bridal fittings and Pinterest boards, was rewriting her story. She tweeted from her condo, her engagement ring glinting under soft lighting. So blessed my real dad will walk me down the aisle. #wedding vibes, #family reunited. The likes poured in. Cousins, co-workers, strangers who didn't know Nathan had co-signed her student loans or driven her to nursing school at dawn. Rick's last message, a thumbs-up emoji to her dress photo, was enough to fuel her fantasy. She didn't think about Nathan, not really. He'd always been there, steady, predictable, like furniture. Rick was the shiny new piece, the father she'd mythologized. But Nathan wasn't furniture. He was a man, and he was done waiting. 2 weeks before the wedding, he canceled his tuxedo fitting with a curt email. Something came up. Won't need it. The tailor didn't question it. Nathan packed a duffel bag in his workshop, methodical as ever, thermal socks, a fleece jacket, his grandfather's pocket knife, a dog-eared copy of The Old Man and the Sea. The wedding invite sat on his desk, unopened, next to a photo of Emily at 10, gap-toothed and grinning, holding a fish they'd caught together. He looked at it, then set it face down in a drawer. No note, no text, no goodbye. Laura sensed something was off but couldn't place it. "You're quiet," she said one night, watching him clean the grill. Nathan shrugged, his smile a mask. "Just tired." She didn't push. She was too busy coordinating with Rick, who'd promised to fly in from Nevada. His texts were sporadic, his excuses flimsy, but Laura clung to the narrative. Emily deserved her real father. Nathan overheard her on the phone, assuring Emily, "He'll be there, sweetie. It's going to be perfect." Nathan's grip tightened on his beer, but he said nothing. Let them dream. Reality was coming. The day before he left, Nathan wired the final payment for the wedding band. Platinum, $2,000, engraved with "Forever Begins Today." Emily had chosen the words, and he'd paid without hesitation. Now it felt like a signature on a contract he was about to void. He drove to the airport at dawn, his duffel in the truck bed, the Portland skyline fading in the rearview. His phone buzzed, Laura, asking if he'd picked up the table linens. He didn't answer. By noon, he was on a plane to Anchorage, then Kodiak, the sea waiting to swallow his past. Back in Portland, Laura and Emily were oblivious. The estate was ready, roses lining the aisle, the quartet rehearsing Vivaldi. Guests RSVP'd, unaware of the fault line under their feet. Laura bragged at a gallery event, "Emily's biological father is stepping up. It's a new chapter." Emily posted another tweet, "Counting down to my big day. Dad's gonna make it special. #blessed." Rick hadn't confirmed his flight, but they didn't worry. They'd won, hadn't they? Nathan was out of the picture, just as they'd wanted. They didn't know the house was sold, the papers signed, the money gone. They didn't know Nathan's plane had landed, that he was standing on a Kodiak dock, the salt air sharp in his lungs, his phone silent in his pocket. They didn't know that when the music started and the guests stood, Their perfect day was about to crack open, exposing the truth they tried to bury. Nathan wasn't coming back. Not to the wedding, not to them. And the man they'd chosen, the one they called real, was already proving he was nothing but smoke. They thought they'd erased him, but Nathan Clark was rewriting the script. As Portland's wedding bells loomed, he stood on a Kodiak dock, the sea whispering freedom, while Laura and Emily's betrayal unraveled in a cascade of lies and empty promises. The Alaskan sun hung low, painting the Gulf of Alaska in hues of gold and steel. Nathan, his cap pulled tight against the wind, cast a fishing line into the icy water. The spools hum a quiet anthem of his escape. The charter boat rocked gently, its crew silent, sensing the weight of the man who'd booked their week-long trip with a single, unhesitating click. Nathan's phone, tucked under a tackle box, buzzed faintly. Laura, Emily, maybe both, chasing a man who'd already slipped their grasp. He didn't check it. The sea didn't care about their regrets, and neither did he. Back in Portland, the wedding estate buzzed with last-minute chaos. White chairs lined the lawn, roses wilting under a too-hot June sun. The string quartet tuned nervously, their notes sharp in the humid air. Laura, in a tailored cream dress, paced the bridal suite, her phone pressed to her ear. "Rick, it's me again. You're landing soon, right? Emily's counting on you." Voicemail. She redialed, her knuckles white. Rick's last text, sent from a Vegas casino at 2 a.m., read, "On my way, promise." That was 12 hours ago. Laura's gut twisted, but she pushed it down. He'd show. He had to. Emily sat before a mirror, her $5,000 gown pooling around her like a fragile dream. Bridesmaids fussed with her veil, their chatter a blur. She stared at her phone, Rick's thumbs-up emoji mocking her from the screen. "He's coming, right, Mom?" she asked, her voice small. Laura forced a smile, the kind that cracked under pressure. "Of course, sweetie. Just traffic." But the lie tasted sour. Emily adjusted her bouquet, her hands trembling, and glanced at the door, half expecting Nathan to walk in with his steady grin and a coffee, like he did on her school mornings. The door stayed shut. Nathan's absence was a ghost no one named. Laura had rebranded it as his choice to her gallery friends, claiming he was fine with stepping back. Emily, caught in her fantasy of Rick, hadn't texted Nathan in weeks, not since her curt message. "I think my real dad should do it." Neither noticed the house sale papers, discreetly filed, or the realtor's sign buried in the backyard hedge. They didn't know Nathan had donated $600,000 to a foster kids charity, severing the last tie to the home he'd built. They were too busy chasing a mirage. On the Kodiak boat, Nathan reeled in a halibut, its fight fierce but futile. The guide, a grizzled man named Cal, nodded approvingly. "Good catch, Clark. You're a natural out here." Nathan gave a half-smile, his first in days. The fish's weight felt real, unlike the promises he'd once trusted. His phone buzzed again, insistent, pitiful. He ignored it, cracking a beer instead, the hiss loud against the waves. Each unanswered call was a brick in the wall he was building, not out of spite, but survival. In Portland, the ceremony's start time crept closer. Guests fanned themselves with programs, their pastel linens damp. Whispers started, soft at first, then sharper. "Where's the father? Isn't her stepdad the one who paid for this? Thought he raised her." Laura overheard, her smile tightening. She texted Rick again. "Where are you? We're starting." No reply. She called. Voicemail. Her pulse raced, but she kept her chin high, deflecting the event planner's questions with a breezy, "He's running late." Emily stood at the garden's edge, the aisle stretching before her like a gauntlet. Her bouquet shook, petals falling. "Mom," she whispered, eyes scanning the horizon for Rick's rental car, his promised navy suit. Laura gripped her arm, too tight. "He's coming. Let's wait." But the quartet's music looped, the guests shifted, and the officiant cleared his throat, glancing at his watch. Emily's breath hitched. She looked back, searching the crowd, a flicker of hope that Nathan might be there, his familiar flannel in the back row. Nothing. Nathan, miles away, cast another line. Cal handed him a thermos of coffee, breaking the silence. You running from something, Clark? Nathan's jaw twitched, but he shrugged. Running to something. Cal didn't press. The sea stretched endless, a canvas of peace Nathan hadn't known he'd needed. His phone vibrated. A final plea from Laura. John, please. Emily needs you. He let it die, the screen dark as his resolve. They didn't need him. They'd made that clear. Back at the estate, the officiant stepped forward. Ladies and gentlemen, please rise. Chairs scraped, programs tucked away. Emily froze, her heels sinking into the grass. Laura whispered, "He'll be here." But her voice cracked. The quartet played Vivaldi too loud, too fast. Emily took a step, then stopped, her eyes darting to the empty spot where her father, any father, should have stood. The officiant asked, "Who gives this bride away?" Silence. The crowd held its breath. Emily's lips trembled. "No one," she whispered, barely audible, a fracture in her fairy tale. Laura's face drained of color. She opened her mouth, but no words came. Guests exchanged glances, the murmurs growing. Where's Nathan? He paid for all this, didn't he? Why isn't he here? The truth clawed through Laura's curated narrative, sharp and unforgiving. Rick wasn't coming. Nathan wasn't either. And Emily, in her perfect gown, stood alone, the weight of her choice crushing her. Nathan didn't know, didn't need to. He reeled in another catch, the fish's silver scales glinting like justice. His phone buzzed one last time, then stopped, battery dead. He didn't care. The sea was his witness, the horizon his judge. Laura and Emily had gambled on a fantasy, betting against the man who'd given them everything. Now, as the aisle stayed empty and the house sale closed, their loss was complete. Nathan wasn't just gone, he was free. The wedding was supposed to be Emily's fairy tale, but it shattered under the weight of her betrayal. As Portland's guests whispered and Nathan Clark fished in Alaskan solitude, Laura and Emily faced a truth they couldn't outrun. The man they'd erased had taken their world with him. The Portland estate, once a vision of roses and Vivaldi, was now a stage for collapse. Emily stood at the altar, her $5,000 gown a cruel reminder of Nathan's sacrifice, her bouquet shedding petals like tears. The officiant's question, "Who gives this bride away?" hung unanswered, a guillotine in the silence. Emily's whispered "no one" cracked her voice, her eyes darting to the empty aisle where Rick, her real dad, was supposed to stand. Laura, in the front row, gripped her clutch, her smile a wax mask melting under the guests' stares. The quartet faltered, their notes sour, as 150 pairs of eyes bore into the unraveling scene. Whispers sliced through the crowd. "Where's Nathan? He paid for this, didn't he? Raised her since she was a kid." A guest in the fourth row leaned to her neighbor, voice low. "Imagine funding your daughter's wedding and being told to stay home." Another nodded, ice cold. Laura heard it all, her jaw clenching so hard it clicked. She wanted to stand, to spin a lie. Nathan's sick, he's working, anything. But the truth was louder. She'd orchestrated this, sidelining the man who'd built their life for a fantasy that never showed. Emily's fiancé, Tom, touched her arm, his face tight with worry. She flinched, her vision blurring. The officiant, sensing the collapse, rushed through the vows, but Emily barely heard. Her phone, tucked in a bridesmaid's purse, held Rick's final text, sent an hour ago. "Sorry, kid. Work thing. Can't make it." No apology, no warmth, just a digital shrug from a man who'd never been more than a name. She traded Nathan, her rock, her dad, for this. The realization hit like a wave, drowning her in shame. Laura's phone buzzed too, a notification from their realtor. Sale finalized. Funds transferred. She opened it, confused, then froze. The bungalow, Nathan's masterpiece, their home was sold. $600,000, gone, donated to a foster kids charity. Her breath caught, a scream trapped in her throat. She texted Nathan. "What did you do? Call me now." No reply. She called, her hands shaking. Voicemail. The crowd's murmurs grew louder, a guest's voice cutting through. Nathan built their house by hand. And they did this to him? The reception was a grim charade. Guests picked at salmon, their conversations hushed. Emily sat at the head table, her makeup streaked, staring at the platinum band Nathan had paid for. Its engraving, "Forever begins today," mocking her. Laura, cornered by a cousin's questions, snapped, "He's fine. Okay?" He chose not to come. But the lie crumbled as a bridesmaid whispered to another. Rick didn't even call her. The story spread, a spark igniting dry grass. By nightfall, the internet caught fire. A guest, u/Rose City Truth on Reddit, posted a blurry photo of Emily, alone at the aisle's start, with a caption, "Bride's stepdad, who raised her and paid for everything, wasn't invited. Biodad bailed." She stood there alone. The post exploded, 80,000 upvotes in hours. TikTok videos followed, set to dramatic piano. The stepdad who gave her everything, ghosted at her wedding. Twitter threads dissected it. "This is emotional theft. Nathan deserves better." BuzzFeed's article, "Bride Chooses Biodad Over Stepdad, Regrets It," went viral, racking up millions of views. Laura's phone lit up with texts from friends, co-workers, even strangers. "Is this true? How could you let this happen?" She deleted them, her hands trembling. But the internet didn't forget. Emily, curled up in her condo, saw the Reddit post, the comments slicing deeper than any knife. "Ungrateful doesn't cover it. Nathan's probably fishing in peace. Good for him." She texted Nathan, her fingers frantic. "Dad, I'm so sorry. I was wrong. Please answer." Nothing. She sent a voice note, her voice breaking. "I didn't mean it. You're my real dad. Please." Silence. In Kodiak, Nathan sat on the charter boat's deck, the Alaskan sky a bruise of purple and gold. His phone, battery low, buzzed under the tackle box. Laura's 10th call. Emily's 3rd voice note. He didn't listen. Cal, the guide, handed him a beer, his eyes curious but kind. "Family trouble?" he asked. Nathan shrugged, cracking the can. "Family's what you make it." He sipped, the cold bitter on his tongue, and cast another line. The sea didn't judge, didn't betray. It just was. Laura's composure shattered by morning. She paced the bungalow's kitchen. Still theirs, she thought, unaware it was sold. Her hair a mess, her cardigan misbuttoned. She called Nathan from her phone, the landline, her brother's number. Voicemail every time. Her text stacked up, blue bubbles of desperation. "Nathan, I messed up. Emily's a wreck. Please call. You were right about Rick. We need you." She didn't know he was 3,000 miles away, his lines slicing the water, his heart sealed shut. Emily emerged from her room, barefoot, her wedding earrings, Nathan's graduation gift, glinting in the light. She sat at the kitchen table, staring at her last text to him. "You were always my dad. I'm sorry. No read receipt, no reply." "He's not answering," Laura whispered, pouring coffee with shaking hands. Emily nodded, her eyes hollow. "I know." The house felt empty, its walls echoing the life they'd lost. Neither knew the keys were already with a developer. The charity check cashed. Their world dismantled by the man they'd dismissed. The internet kept churning. A local news outlet picked up the story. Portland bride's wedding disaster sparks debate. Comments flooded in, "Nathan's the real hero. They don't deserve him." Laura's gallery co-workers whispered behind her back. Emily's nursing friends sent cautious texts. "You okay?" Saw the post. Shame clung to them like damp air, inescapable. They'd wanted a perfect moment, a perfect dad. Instead, they'd lost the only one who'd ever shown up. Nathan didn't see the posts, didn't need to. He reeled in a cod, its fight fierce, and laughed, the sound startling Cal. For the first time in weeks, he felt light, unburdened. His phone died, the screen black, and he let it stay that way. Laura and Emily could beg, cry, rage, but they couldn't undo their choice. The house was gone, the wedding a wreckage, their narrative in tatters. Nathan wasn't running anymore. He was standing still on his terms, with the sea as his witness and freedom as his prize. They thought they could call him back with tears, but Nathan Clark had found something they couldn't touch: peace. As Portland reeled from the wreckage of Emily's wedding, Nathan stood on his own terms, leaving Laura and Emily to face the consequences of their betrayal in a world they'd broken themselves. The August air in Portland had softened, the brutal heat giving way to crisp mornings and golden light. But for Laura and Emily, time had frozen in the aftermath of the wedding that wasn't. The Craftsman bungalow, their anchor, was gone. Sold in a quiet transaction Nathan had orchestrated before his plane left for Kodiak. The developer's crew was already gutting it, tearing out the cedar beams Nathan had carved, the fireplace where Emily once burned her marshmallows. Laura stood in the empty driveway, a realtor's letter in her hand, stating the $600,000 had been donated to a foster kids charity. She texted Nathan again. "How could you do this? We have nothing." No reply. Her calls hit voicemail, her voice notes unanswered, piling up like leaves in a storm. Emily, holed up in her condo, hadn't touched her wedding album. The photos, polished and staged, lied about the day. Her strained smile, the empty aisle, the platinum band Nathan paid for, engraved with "Forever begins today." She deleted her Twitter after the Reddit post. Rose City Trutha's viral bombshell racked up 120,000 upvotes, spawning TikTok rants and YouTube reaction videos. The stepdad who gave everything, betrayed at the altar. One creator said, their comment section a war zone. Emily's heartless. Laura's worse. Nathan's a legend. Emily's phone buzzed with pity texts from friends, but she only wanted one message, one she'd never get. Her last voice note to Nathan, sent at 3 a.m., was raw, desperate. "Dad, I was stupid. You were there every day and I threw it away. Please, just talk to me." Silence. Laura's gallery job became a gauntlet. Coworkers whispered, clients raised eyebrows, and her boss suggested a break after a viral article. Portland bride's betrayal goes global, linked her to the scandal. She moved in with her sister, a cramped apartment smelling of cat litter, her cream blazer folded in a box. At night, she scrolled the comments. Nathan deserved better. They treated him like a wallet. Shame wasn't just a feeling. It was a weight, pressing her into the couch. She called Nathan daily, her pleas sharper. "Emily's not eating. We lost the house. Please, Nathan, we're sorry." Nothing. She didn't know his phone was off, charging in a Kodiak cabin, untouched. In Alaska, Nathan's week on the charter boat had ended, but he stayed. He rented a small cabin near the docks, its walls weathered pine, its windows framing the endless sea. He whittled driftwood in the evenings, his grandfather's pocketknife steady in his hands, the motions calming the ache that lingered. The wedding date had passed, but he hadn't forgotten it. He could picture the estate, the roses, Emily's gown, his money, his love, woven into a day that excluded him. He didn't feel anger, not anymore. He felt done. His phone, revived briefly, showed 22 missed calls, 15 texts, 6 voice notes. Emily's last one, "You're my real dad," sat unread. Laura's final text, "We were wrong. Come home." Home? The word was hollow, a house sold, a life dismantled. He deleted the messages not out of spite, but because they didn't matter. They'd chosen Rick, a ghost who'd ghosted again, and now they wanted the man they'd erased. Too late. Portland's gossip hadn't faded. At the grocery store, a stranger muttered, "That's the mom from the wedding story," loud enough for Laura to hear. She dropped her basket, fleeing to her car. Emily, back at work, felt patient stares, their hushed tones. She's the one who ditched her stepdad. The internet had moved on to new dramas, but the scar remained, a reminder of what they'd lost. Emily started therapy, her voice low as she admitted, "I thought Rick would make it perfect. I didn't see what I had. Nathan didn't know, didn't care. He'd returned to Portland, but not to them. He leased a studio apartment in the Pearl District, its bare walls a fresh start. With the last of his savings, he opened a carpentry workshop, a small space filled with sawdust and hope. He taught foster kids to build birdhouses, bookshelves, dreams, his hands guiding theirs as he once guided Emily's. The kids called him Mr. Nate, their laughter filling the void. He smiled more, his eyes regaining their cedar warmth. One Thursday, Laura saw him at a hardware store, buying wood glue and nails. He was leaner, tanned, his flannel worn but clean, a new cap shading his face. "Nathan!" she called, her voice a mix of relief and panic. He turned, their eyes meeting. Her lips parted, ready to spill apologies, excuses. "Please, Emily's broken. I was wrong. Come back." But Nathan did something simpler. He smiled. Not bitter, not cruel, just free. A smile that said, "I see you and I'm done." He turned, walked to the checkout, and left her standing in aisle 6, clutching her shopping list like a lifeline that wasn't there. Laura didn't follow. She couldn't. The weight of her choices, pushing Nathan out, betting on Rick, dismissing a man who'd given everything, pinned her in place. Emily, hearing about it, cried in her therapist's office. The earrings Nathan gave her still in her ears. They'd lost more than a house, more than a wedding. They'd lost him. Nathan's workshop thrived. A local paper ran a story. Carpenter rebuilds lives after viral wedding snub. Readers donated tools, supplies, even scholarships for his kids. He didn't read the comments, didn't need the validation. He stood in his shop, a foster kid's birdhouse in his hands, and felt whole. Laura and Emily faced their consequences. Not punishment, but absence. The void of a man who'd loved them unconditionally and learned he deserved better. They could rebuild, maybe. Laura started counseling. Emily volunteered at a shelter, seeking redemption. But Nathan, he was no longer theirs to claim. He'd chosen himself, his kids, his craft. The sea had taught him peace, the workshop gave him purpose. And in the quiet of his new life, he knew. Some bridges don't need burning, they just need walking away from.